What if I told you that everything you think you know about productivity is a lie? What if the reason you're not achieving the results you want isn't because you're lazy, but because you're following advice designed to keep you average? Here's the brutal truth. While you're organizing color-coded calendars and trying the latest productivity app, there's a small group of people who are operating on a completely different level. They're using methods so effective, so psychologically powerful that if you saw them in action, you'd think they were cheating the system. I'm talking about entrepreneurs who build million-dollar companies while working fewer hours than their employees. Athletes who achieve in months what others spend years trying to accomplish. Students who master complex subjects while their peers are still struggling with the basics. These people aren't superhuman. They're not more talented. They're just using a completely different playbook. The productivity industry has sold you a fantasy. They've convinced you that success comes from perfect systems, elaborate routines, and finding the right balance. But the people who actually dominate their fields, they don't balance anything. They don't use cute productivity hacks. They use methods so intense, so focused, so relentlessly effective that most people would call them extreme. Today, I'm going to share those methods with you. But I need to warn you, once you understand how the top 1% really operate, you'll never look at productivity the same way again. These aren't feel-good tips. This isn't about finding work-life balance. This is about becoming so disgustingly productive that your results feel illegal. Are you ready to leave the world of average behind? Because there's no going back after this. Chapter 1. The productivity lie that's keeping you broke. Let me destroy the biggest lie in the productivity space right now. You've been told that productivity is about time management, about finding the perfect system, about creating balance in your life. That's complete garbage. And here's why you need to understand this immediately. The productivity industry is designed to keep you buying, not winning. Think about it. Every productivity guru tells you the same recycled nonsense. Wake up early, make lists, batch your tasks, find your perfect morning routine. They sell you the illusion that if you just organize your life better, success will magically follow. But here's what they don't tell you. The most productive people in the world don't manage their time. They obliterate everything that doesn't matter. While you're spending 30 minutes every morning writing in your gratitude journal and color-coding your calendar, the person who's going to crush you in business is spending that same 30 minutes making deals, solving problems, and taking action that actually moves the needle. While you're trying to balance work and life, they're obsessing over their craft with an intensity that would make most people uncomfortable. The real secret isn't time management. It's priority destruction. The most productive people don't do more things. They do fewer things with savage focus. They don't try to optimize every area of their life. They sacrifice everything that doesn't serve their ultimate goal. Here's the psychological trap you've fallen into. You think being busy means being productive. You think having a perfect system means you're winning. But productivity isn't about doing things efficiently. It's about doing the right things with such extreme focus that average people can't compete with you. The average person checks their phone 4 times per day. The average knowledge worker switches between tasks every 3 minutes. The average entrepreneur spends more time planning than executing. And you wonder why average people get average results. Meanwhile, the people who actually win have eliminated 80% of what everyone else considers important. They don't check email throughout the day. They don't attend meetings that don't directly impact their goals. They don't waste mental energy on decisions that don't matter. They've created a ruthless system of elimination that allows them to pour all their cognitive resources into the few things that actually create results. This is why your current approach is failing you. You're trying to manage your way to success instead of dominating your way there. You're playing small when the game requires you to play savage. The productivity methods I'm about to share with you aren't about balance. They're about becoming so focused, so intense, so relentlessly effective that your competition can't even comprehend what you're doing. Stop trying to be well-rounded. Stop trying to do everything. The people who win don't manage their productivity. They weaponize it. Chapter 2. The 3 deadly productivity traps that keep high achievers stuck. Even smart, driven people fall into these traps. And they're so subtle that you might not even realize you're stuck in them right now. These aren't beginner mistakes. These are the sophisticated forms of self-sabotage that keep high performers spinning their wheels while thinking they're making progress. Trap number 1. The optimization obsession. You've become addicted to perfecting your system instead of using it. You spend more time thinking about productivity than actually being productive. You research the perfect note-taking app, debate between different time-blocking methods, and constantly tweak your morning routine. But here's the brutal reality. While you're optimizing, your competition is executing. I see this everywhere. Entrepreneurs who spend weeks building the perfect workflow but never actually start their business. Students who create elaborate study systems but barely study. Writers who organize their ideas for months but never write. You've confused the meta work with the real work. And it's killing your progress. The psychology behind this trap is simple. Optimization feels like progress without the risk of failure. It's easier to perfect your system than to use it and potentially fail. But success doesn't come from having the perfect system. It comes from using an imperfect system consistently and aggressively. Trap number 2. The motivation dependency. You only work when you feel like it, and you've convinced yourself this is being authentic to your natural rhythms. This is sophisticated procrastination disguised as self-awareness. You wait for inspiration. You work in bursts when you're motivated. You take breaks when you don't feel like pushing through. Here's what you don't understand. Motivation is a luxury that successful people can't afford to depend on. The people who dominate their fields have divorced their productivity from their feelings. They've built systems that force them to execute regardless of their emotional state. They don't wait to feel motivated. They create motivation through action. The most dangerous part of this trap is that it feels reasonable. It feels human. But while you're honoring your feelings, someone else is building the business you dreamed of, writing the book you planned, or mastering the skill you've been thinking about. Trap number 3. The perfectionist delay. You don't start until everything is perfect. And you don't ship until it meets your impossible standards. This isn't about quality. This is about fear disguised as standards. You research for months before starting. You revise endlessly before sharing. You wait for the perfect moment that never comes. The psychological truth behind perfectionism is that it's a defense mechanism against criticism and failure. By never finishing or starting, you never risk being judged. But here's what perfectionism really costs you. While you're polishing, someone else is launching. While you're preparing, someone else is learning through real feedback. While you're perfecting, someone else is improving through iteration. The most successful people I know are embarrassed by their early work, but they're grateful they started. They understand that done is better than perfect and that real-world feedback beats theoretical perfection every time. They'd rather fail fast and adjust than succeed slowly and miss the opportunity. These traps are seductive because they feel like productivity. They feel like you're working on important things, but they're sophisticated forms of resistance that keep you from doing the work that actually matters. The people who break through these traps don't have more willpower or better systems. They have a clearer understanding of what actually creates results. And they're willing to be uncomfortable in service of those results. If you recognize yourself in any of these traps, don't panic. Recognition is the first step toward freedom. But now you have no excuse. Now it's time to break free and start operating like the top 1%. Chapter 3. The illegal focus framework that eliminates 90% of your distractions. What I'm about to share with you is so psychologically powerful that most people refuse to implement it because it requires them to admit that 90% of what they do doesn't matter. This framework has been used by Navy SEALs, Olympic athletes, and billionaire entrepreneurs, but it's never been broken down in a way that regular people can apply immediately. It's called the nuclear focus protocol, and it's based on a simple but brutal principle. Your attention is being systematically destroyed by forces designed to profit from your distraction. Every app on your phone, every notification, every meeting, every email is part of a coordinated assault on your cognitive resources. While you're trying to multitask your way to success, the people who actually win have declared war on everything that doesn't serve their ultimate objective. Here's how the protocol works and why it feels illegal when you apply it correctly. Phase 1. The attention audit. For the next 7 days, you're going to track every single thing that interrupts your focus. Every notification, every conversation, every task switch, every mental distraction. Most people think they know where their attention goes, but they're lying to themselves. The average knowledge worker is interrupted every 3 minutes and takes 23 minutes to fully refocus. That means you're never actually focused. You're living in a constant state of cognitive switching that's destroying your capacity for deep work. Write down every interruption. Timestamp it. Note what caused it and how long it took you to refocus. This isn't just data collection. This is warfare intelligence. You're identifying the enemy forces that are stealing your cognitive power and using it against you. Phase 2. The ruthless elimination. This is where most people fail because they try to minimize distractions instead of eliminating them completely. Minimizing is a compromise that guarantees failure. Elimination is the only strategy that works. You're going to remove 90% of the interruptions you identified, and you're going to do it without exceptions or negotiations. Delete every app that isn't essential to your primary objective. Turn off every notification except genuine emergencies. Cancel every meeting that doesn't directly contribute to your goals. Stop checking email except at predetermined times. Remove yourself from group chats, social media feeds, and news cycles that add zero value to your mission. This feels extreme because it is extreme. But here's what you don't understand. Every distraction you keep is a vote for mediocrity. Every notification you allow is you choosing average results. The people who dominate their fields don't have better self-control than you. They've eliminated the need for self-control by designing an environment that only allows for focus. Phase 3. The deep work lockdown. Once you've eliminated the external distractions, you need to create an internal environment that makes deep focus inevitable. This means scheduling specific blocks of time for cognitively demanding work and treating those blocks like sacred appointments that cannot be moved or interrupted. During these blocks, you become unreachable. Your phone goes into airplane mode. Your door gets locked. Your family knows not to disturb you. Your employees know you're unavailable. You become a ghost to the outside world because the work you're doing during these sessions is what separates you from everyone else. But here's the part that makes this protocol illegal. You're not just protecting your focus during work time. You're training your brain to crave focus instead of distraction. Most people have conditioned their minds to need constant stimulation. You're going to reverse that conditioning and make deep work your default state. Phase 4. The cognitive loading. This is the advanced technique that turns your brain into a focus machine. Instead of trying to remember everything, you're going to externalize your cognitive load through systematic capture and review. Every task, every idea, every commitment gets written down in a trusted system that you review daily. This isn't just organization. This is cognitive liberation. When your brain knows that everything important is captured and will be reviewed, it stops trying to remember everything and can focus completely on the task at hand. You eliminate the mental background noise that's constantly running in your head, using up cognitive resources that should be devoted to high-level thinking. The psychological effect of this protocol is profound. Within 2 weeks, you'll notice that focus becomes easier, not harder. Your brain will start craving the deep work sessions instead of fighting them. You'll become uncomfortable with distraction instead of comfortable with it. Other people will start commenting on your intensity, your presence, your ability to get things done. This feels illegal because in a world designed to fragment your attention, having complete focus is like having a superpower. While everyone else is scattered and reactive, you become laser-focused and proactive. While everyone else is busy, you become effective. While everyone else is distracted, you become dangerous. Chapter 4. The 80/20 power move that doubles your results while working half the time. Most people have heard of the 80/20 rule, but they're applying it wrong, and it's costing them everything. They think 80/20 means working smarter, not harder. They think it's about finding balance and efficiency. That's not just wrong. It's dangerous thinking that keeps you trapped in mediocrity. The real 80/20 principle, when applied correctly, is a weapon that allows you to demolish your competition while they're still trying to do everything. Here's what the productivity gurus won't tell you. 80/20 isn't about balance. It's about ruthless elimination and savage focus. It's about identifying the 20% of actions that create 80% of your results, then eliminating everything else with zero guilt and zero compromise. It's about becoming comfortable with being called extreme, obsessive, and unbalanced by people who will never achieve what you're going to achieve. The psychological breakthrough happens when you realize that most of what you do is worthless, busy work that makes you feel productive while keeping you poor. You attend meetings that accomplish nothing. You complete tasks that no one cares about. You optimize processes that don't impact outcomes. You're working hard on things that don't work. And you're calling it dedication. Let me show you how to apply 80/20 like a weapon instead of a suggestion. Step 1. The brutal value analysis. For the next month, you're going to track every single activity and measure its direct impact on your primary objective. Not its potential impact, not its theoretical value, its measurable, concrete contribution to what you're trying to achieve. This means assigning a dollar value, a skill improvement value, or a goal advancement value to every hour you spend. Most people skip this step because they're afraid of what they'll discover. They're afraid to admit that 80% of their daily activities contribute zero value to their goals. They're afraid to confront the fact that they're majoring in minor things while their competition is majoring in major things. But this analysis is what separates the people who talk about productivity from the people who embody it. You're going to discover that checking email 47 times a day contributes nothing to your success. You're going to realize that 90% of your meetings are just expensive therapy sessions for people who can't make decisions. You're going to see that your perfectionist tendencies are actually costing you opportunities. Step 2. The elimination protocol. This is where 80/20 becomes surgical. You're not going to minimize the low-value activities. You're not going to optimize them. You're not going to delegate them. You're going to eliminate them completely, and you're going to do it without warning or apology. Stop attending meetings that don't require your specific expertise. Stop completing tasks that don't move your primary objective forward. Stop engaging in conversations that don't add value to your mission. Stop consuming content that doesn't directly improve your skills or knowledge in your chosen field. This feels brutal because you've been conditioned to believe that being helpful and available is virtuous. But here's the truth. Every low-value activity you eliminate is cognitive energy you can redirect toward high-value activities. Every pointless meeting you skip is an hour you can spend on something that actually matters. Every trivial task you delete is mental space you can use for strategic thinking. Step 3. The focus amplification. Once you've eliminated the 80%, you don't just maintain your current effort on the 20%. You amplify it. You take all the time, energy, and attention you were spreading across worthless activities and concentrate it like a laser on the few things that actually create results. If writing is your 20%, you don't just write for an hour a day. You write for 4 hours a day. If sales calls are your 20%, you don't just make 10 calls a day. You make 40 calls a day. If skill development is your 20%, you don't just practice for 30 minutes, you practice for 2 hours. This is where the magic happens. This is where 80/20 stops being a productivity hack and becomes a competitive advantage. While your competition is spreading their efforts across dozens of activities, you're concentrating your entire capacity on the few things that actually matter. While they're trying to be good at everything, you're becoming exceptional at the things that drive results. Step 4. The compound acceleration. The most powerful part of this protocol is what happens over time. When you consistently focus 80% of your effort on the 20% of activities that matter most, you don't just get better results. You get exponentially better results. Your skills compound, your relationships deepen, your reputation grows, your opportunities multiply. 6 months from now, while your peers are still scattered across dozens of priorities, you'll have developed such expertise and momentum in your core areas that they won't be able to catch up. A year from now, you'll be operating in a completely different league. 2 years from now, they'll be studying your methods and wondering how you made it look so easy. The psychological shift that makes this possible is the willingness to be unbalanced. The people who apply 80/20 correctly aren't well-rounded. They're not trying to be good at everything. They've accepted that mastery requires sacrifice, and they're willing to be called obsessive by people who will never understand what it takes to dominate a field. This doesn't feel like work-life balance because it isn't. This feels like work-life domination because that's exactly what it is. You're not trying to manage your productivity. You're trying to weaponize it. Chapter 5. The psychological warfare tactics that make procrastination impossible. Procrastination isn't a time management problem. It's not a motivation problem. It's not even a discipline problem. Procrastination is a psychological warfare problem. And until you understand the enemy you're fighting, you'll keep losing battles. You should be winning. What I'm about to share with you are the exact psychological tactics used by military special forces, elite athletes, and billionaire entrepreneurs to make action inevitable and delay impossible. The first thing you need to understand is that procrastination is your brain's primitive survival mechanism trying to protect you from perceived threats. Every time you think about doing important work, your amygdala interprets it as danger and floods your system with stress hormones designed to make you avoid the threat. Your brain would rather keep you safe and mediocre than let you risk failure and potentially achieve greatness. This is why willpower fails. This is why motivation fades. This is why you can know exactly what you need to do and still not do it. You're fighting a biological system that's designed to keep you alive, not help you thrive. But the people who break through procrastination permanently have learned to hack this system instead of fighting it. Tactic 1. The Implementation Intention Protocol. This technique was developed by psychologist Peter Gowitzer and is used by Navy SEALs to ensure mission-critical actions happen under extreme stress. Instead of relying on motivation or remembering to do something, you pre-program your behavior using if-then statements that bypass your conscious decision-making process. Here's how it works. Instead of saying, "I will work on my project tomorrow," you say, "If it's 900 a.m. and I'm in my office, then I will immediately open my laptop and start writing." Instead of saying, "I will exercise this week," you say, "If it's 6 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then I will immediately put on my workout clothes and go to the gym." The psychological power of this technique is that it removes the decision point where procrastination lives. You're not deciding whether to work when the time comes. You're following a pre-programmed sequence that was decided when your willpower was strong. Your brain treats these implementation intentions like automatic habits instead of effortful decisions. Tactic 2. The Commitment Device Weaponization. A commitment device is any mechanism that makes the cost of not following through higher than the cost of following through. The most successful people don't rely on self-discipline. They engineer situations where discipline becomes irrelevant because the alternative is unacceptable. This means putting money on the line. Real money that you can't afford to lose. This means making public commitments that would embarrass you if you broke them. This means scheduling deadlines with people you respect that you couldn't live with disappointing. This means creating accountability systems that make procrastination more painful than action. The psychology behind this is simple. Your brain is designed to avoid loss more strongly than it seeks gain. When you make the cost of inaction higher than the cost of action, your primitive brain starts working for you instead of against you. Suddenly, the same psychological system that was causing procrastination is now forcing you to take action. Tactic 3. The environmental manipulation strategy. Your environment is programming your behavior every second of every day. And most people are completely unaware of this programming. Every object in your workspace, every app on your phone, every item in your living space is either making productive behavior easier or harder. The people who never procrastinate have engineered their environment to make the right choices automatic and the wrong choices impossible. This means removing every friction point between you and productive action. Your workout clothes are laid out the night before. Your workspace is set up exactly the way you need it. Your phone is in another room during work hours. Your healthy food is prepared and visible. Your creative tools are within arm's reach. But it also means adding friction to destructive behaviors. Your TV remote is hidden in a drawer. Your social media apps require multiple steps to access. Your bed is made so perfectly that lying down would require effort. Your junk food is stored in inconvenient locations. The psychological principle is that humans are cognitive misers who choose the path of least resistance. When you make productive behavior the easiest option and destructive behavior the hardest option, you're using your brain's laziness against its tendency to procrastinate. Tactic 4. The identity warfare protocol. This is the most powerful and most dangerous tactic because it changes who you are at a fundamental level. Instead of trying to do productive things, you become a productive person. Instead of trying to write, you become a writer. Instead of trying to exercise, you become an athlete. Instead of trying to build a business, you become an entrepreneur. The psychological breakthrough happens when you realize that behavior follows identity. People who see themselves as writers write consistently. People who see themselves as athletes exercise consistently. People who see themselves as entrepreneurs take business action consistently. They don't need motivation because their actions align with their identity. But changing your identity requires evidence and evidence requires action. So you start with small actions that a productive person would take and you use those actions as proof that you are becoming that person. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you're voting for your new identity. Every time you procrastinate, you're voting for your old identity. The people who break through procrastination permanently don't just change their behavior. They change their story about who they are and what they do. They stop seeing themselves as someone who struggles with procrastination and start seeing themselves as someone who takes immediate action. They stop identifying with their past patterns and start identifying with their future potential. These tactics feel like psychological warfare because that's exactly what they are. You're using advanced psychological principles to hack your own brain and make productive behavior inevitable. You're not fighting procrastination. You're making procrastination impossible. Chapter 6. The energy management system that turns you into a human performance machine. Everyone talks about time management. But the people who actually dominate their fields have moved beyond time to something far more powerful. Energy management. Time is finite and equal for everyone. Energy is variable and controllable. And when you learn to manipulate your energy levels like a laboratory scientist, you become capable of performance that other people literally cannot comprehend. Here's what most people don't understand. You don't have one energy level throughout the day. You have multiple energy systems operating simultaneously. And each one can be optimized, depleted, or restored using specific protocols. The average person randomly burns through their energy reserves and wonders why they feel exhausted by 3:00 p.m. The top 1% treat their energy like a strategic resource and engineer their days to maintain peak performance for 12 to 16 hours straight. This isn't about drinking more coffee or getting better sleep, although those factors matter. This is about understanding the 4 distinct energy systems in your body and brain. Then designing your schedule, environment, and habits to maximize each system independently. Energy System 1. Cognitive energy. This is your brain's capacity for complex thinking, decision-making, and creative problem-solving. Most people destroy their cognitive energy within the first 2 hours of their day by checking email, scrolling social media, and making dozens of trivial decisions about what to wear, what to eat, and what to do first. The cognitive energy protocol is simple but requires discipline that most people refuse to implement. You protect your cognitive peak hours like your life depends on it because your career actually does depend on it. The first 3 hours after you wake up are reserved exclusively for your most important cognitive work. No email, no meetings, no phone calls, no decisions that don't directly serve your primary objective. But here's where it gets advanced. You also need to systematically reduce your daily decision load through automation and elimination. Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day, not because he lacked creativity, but because he understood that every trivial decision depletes the same cognitive resources needed for revolutionary thinking. You're going to automate every possible decision in your life so that 100% of your cognitive energy can be directed toward work that actually matters. Energy System 2. Physical energy. Your body is not just a transportation system for your brain. It's an integrated performance machine that directly impacts your cognitive capacity, emotional resilience, and creative output. When your physical energy is optimized, every other system operates at a higher level. When it's depleted, everything becomes harder. The physical energy protocol goes far beyond basic fitness advice. You're going to treat your body like an elite athlete treats theirs, even if you work in an office. This means strategic movement throughout the day to maintain blood flow and oxygen delivery to your brain. This means understanding how different foods affect your energy levels and eating accordingly. This means using temperature, light exposure, and breathing techniques to manipulate your arousal levels in real time. Most people eat lunch and wonder why they crash at 2 p.m. You're going to eat foods that stabilize your blood sugar and maintain consistent energy for hours. Most people sit at a desk for 8 hours and wonder why they feel mentally sluggish. You're going to incorporate movement protocols that keep your brain oxygenated and alert throughout the day. Energy System 3. Emotional energy. This is your capacity to maintain motivation, handle stress, and stay resilient in the face of challenges. Emotional energy is the most ignored and most critical system because it affects everything else. When your emotional energy is high, you can push through cognitive fatigue and physical discomfort. When it's depleted, even easy tasks become overwhelming. The emotional energy protocol is based on understanding what drains you and what restores you. Then engineering your environment and relationships accordingly. This means eliminating energy vampires from your life without guilt or apology. This means setting boundaries that protect your emotional resources. This means surrounding yourself with people who energize you rather than people who need constant emotional maintenance. But the advanced technique is learning to generate emotional energy through identity and purpose rather than depending on external circumstances. When your work aligns with your deepest values and your daily actions support your long-term vision, you generate emotional energy instead of consuming it. You stop needing external motivation because you're internally motivated by the knowledge that every action is moving you toward a future you're excited about. Energy System 4. Spiritual energy. This isn't about religion or mysticism. This is about connection to something larger than your immediate desires and fears. It's about operating from a sense of purpose that transcends personal comfort and convenience. When your spiritual energy is activated, you become capable of sustained effort that other people can't maintain because they're only working for themselves. The spiritual energy protocol involves regularly connecting with your deepest reasons for doing what you do. This means spending time in reflection and planning that goes beyond immediate goals to ultimate vision. This means understanding how your work serves others and contributes to something meaningful. This means maintaining perspective on your role in a larger story that gives meaning to temporary struggles and setbacks. The integration protocol is where this system becomes illegal. Instead of managing these four energy systems separately, you're going to synchronize them to create compound effects. When you optimize your physical energy, your cognitive energy improves. When you align your work with your spiritual energy, your emotional energy increases. When you protect your cognitive energy, you have more capacity for physical training. The result is a performance level that other people literally cannot sustain because they're randomly depleting their energy reserves while you're systematically optimizing and restoring yours. While they're burning out, you're building momentum. While they're struggling to maintain motivation, you're operating from a source of energy that renews itself through use. This is why some people can work 80-hour weeks and thrive while others burn out working 40 hours. It's not about working more hours. It's about working from optimized energy systems that allow you to maintain peak performance for extended periods. It's about understanding that energy, not time, is the ultimate constraint on human performance. Chapter 7. The attention hijacking defense system that makes you immune to digital distraction. Your attention is under assault every second of every day by forces that have invested billions of dollars in understanding exactly how to capture and monetize your focus. Every app on your phone, every website you visit, every advertisement you see has been engineered by teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists whose job is to make your attention addictive and profitable for someone else while you're trying to focus on your goals, your dreams, and your important work. There's an entire industry designed to fragment your attention and keep you scrolling, clicking, and consuming instead of creating, building, and achieving. The average person checks their phone 144 times per day. The average knowledge worker is interrupted every 3 minutes. The average person spends over 7 hours per day looking at screens, most of it completely unconscious and automatic. This isn't an accident. This isn't a lack of willpower. This is the result of sophisticated psychological manipulation that most people don't even realize is happening to them. But the people who achieve extraordinary results have developed an immune system against digital distraction that makes them virtually untouchable by these forces. The first level of defense is understanding the enemy. Every notification, every red badge, every infinite scroll feature has been designed to trigger the same neurochemical responses as gambling and drug addiction. Your brain releases dopamine not when you get the reward, but when you anticipate the reward. This means that the possibility of a new message, like or update, creates a craving that can only be satisfied by checking your device. But here's the insidious part. The satisfaction is temporary, and the craving returns within minutes. You're stuck in a cycle of anticipation and temporary relief that never actually satisfies the underlying need for stimulation. Meanwhile, your capacity for sustained attention is being systematically destroyed by this constant switching between focus and distraction. The second level of defense is environmental warfare. You cannot rely on willpower to resist technology that has been designed to override your willpower. You need to engineer your environment so that focused work becomes the path of least resistance and distraction becomes difficult or impossible. This means your phone goes into a drawer in another room during work hours. Not on silent, not face down on your desk. Completely inaccessible. This means deleting every app that isn't essential to your primary objective. Not hiding them in folders, not turning off notifications, completely removing them from your device. This means using website blockers that make accessing distracting sites impossible during work hours. Not just difficult, impossible. The psychological principle behind this defense is that humans are cognitive misers who choose the easiest available option. When you make distraction harder to access than focused work, your brain naturally defaults to focus. When you make checking social media require multiple steps while making your important work immediately accessible, you're using your brain's laziness to support your goals instead of sabotage them. The third level of defense is attention training. Just like you can train your muscles to become stronger, you can train your attention to become more stable and resistant to distraction. This isn't meditation, although meditation can be helpful. This is specific cognitive training that strengthens your ability to sustain focus on a single object or task for extended periods. The attention training protocol involves progressively longer periods of single task focus without any external stimulation. You start with 25 minutes of completely uninterrupted work on one task. No music, no background noise, no notifications, no task switching, just you. One task and sustained attention for 25 minutes straight. Most people can't do this. Their brains have been so conditioned to expect constant stimulation that 25 minutes of single task focus feels uncomfortable, boring, or even anxiety-provoking. But this discomfort is exactly what you're training yourself to overcome. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone, switch tasks, or seek external stimulation, you're strengthening your attention like a muscle. As your attention span increases, you extend the session's 45 minutes, 90 minutes. Eventually, you can maintain laser focus for 3 to 4 hours straight without any internal or external distractions. This level of sustained attention is so rare in the modern world that it becomes a massive competitive advantage. The fourth level of defense is cognitive sovereignty. This is the most advanced and most important level because it addresses the underlying psychological vulnerabilities that make you susceptible to distraction in the first place. Most people are distracted not just by external stimuli but by internal anxiety, boredom and discomfort with their own thoughts. Cognitive sovereignty means becoming comfortable with your own mind without external entertainment or stimulation. It means being able to sit alone with your thoughts without needing to escape into digital distraction. It means developing the internal stability and self-awareness that makes you immune to the psychological manipulation embedded in modern technology. This requires developing what psychologists call metacognitive awareness. The ability to observe your own thinking process without being controlled by it. When you notice your mind generating the urge to check your phone, you don't automatically obey that urge. You observe it, understand it, and choose your response consciously instead of reactively. The integration protocol combines all four levels into a comprehensive defense system that makes you virtually immune to digital distraction. Your environment supports focus. Your attention is trained for sustained concentration. Your psychology is stable and self-contained, and your understanding of the enemy makes you resistant to manipulation. The result is a level of focus that other people literally cannot comprehend. While your competition is fragmented and reactive, you become laser-focused and proactive. While they're consuming, you're creating. While they're distracted, you're dangerous. This isn't just about productivity. This is about cognitive freedom in a world designed to make you mentally enslaved. Chapter 8. The Systematic Elimination Protocol that destroys everything that doesn't serve your mission. The biggest lie you've been told about success is that you need to do more. Add more skills. Take more courses. Build more relationships. Pursue more opportunities. This is the thinking that keeps ambitious people trapped in mediocrity while they exhaust themselves trying to be everything to everyone. The people who actually dominate their fields understand a principle that most people refuse to accept. Subtraction is more powerful than addition. Every world-class performer, every billionaire entrepreneur, every Olympic champion has one thing in common. They've eliminated more things from their life than they've added. They understand that saying yes to everything important means saying no to everything else. And they're comfortable with that trade-off in a way that average people are not. The systematic elimination protocol is based on a simple but brutal principle. Everything in your life is either accelerating your progress toward your primary objective or it's slowing you down. There is no neutral. There are no harmless distractions. There are no small compromises. Every activity, relationship, commitment, and habit is either making you stronger or making you weaker. Phase 1. The Complete Life Audit. For the next 2 weeks, you're going to document every single activity you engage in, every person you interact with, every commitment you honor, and every habit you maintain. This isn't casual tracking. This is forensic analysis of how you're actually spending your life energy versus how you think you're spending it. Most people live in complete delusion about where their time and energy actually go. They think they're focused when they're scattered. They think they're productive when they're busy. They think they're making progress when they're spinning their wheels. The life audit destroys these comfortable lies and forces you to confront the brutal reality of how you're actually operating. Write down everything: how long you spend getting ready in the morning, how many times you check your phone, how much time you spend in conversations that don't add value, how many hours you waste on activities that feel productive but contribute nothing to your goals, how much mental energy you burn on decisions that don't matter. The psychological impact of this audit is profound and uncomfortable. You're going to discover that probably 70% of your daily activities contribute zero value to your primary objective. You're going to realize that you're majoring in minor things while your competition is majoring in major things. You're going to see that your lack of progress isn't due to bad luck or insufficient opportunity. It's due to systematic misallocation of your most precious resources. Phase 2. The ruthless classification. Once you have complete data on how you're actually living, you're going to classify every activity into one of three categories: essential, useful, or elimination. Essential activities directly advance your primary objective and cannot be delegated or automated. Useful activities support your objective, but could potentially be optimized or delegated. Elimination activities contribute nothing meaningful and exist only because of habit, social pressure, or lack of conscious choice. Essential activities get protected and expanded. Useful activities get optimized and potentially delegated. Elimination activities get destroyed without negotiation or compromise. This isn't about finding balance or making gradual improvements. This is about surgical removal of everything that doesn't serve your mission. Most people fail at this phase because they try to justify keeping activities that feel important but contribute nothing to their actual goals. They can't eliminate social obligations that drain their energy because they're afraid of disappointing people. They can't stop consuming content that feels educational but doesn't improve their skills. They can't abandon hobbies that feel relaxing but consume time they could be investing in their future. But here's the truth that successful people understand. Every minute you spend on elimination activities is a minute stolen from essential activities. Every yes to something unimportant is a no to something that could change your life. Every compromise you make to avoid uncomfortable conversations is a compromise of your potential. Phase 3. The elimination execution. This is where most people talk themselves out of the protocol because the changes required feel extreme, antisocial, or uncomfortable. But extreme problems require extreme solutions. And mediocrity is an extreme problem that requires extreme measures to solve. You're going to eliminate activities, not optimize them. You're going to end relationships, not improve them. You're going to quit commitments, not reduce them. You're going to delete habits, not modify them. The goal isn't gradual improvement. The goal is radical transformation through systematic subtraction. Cancel every subscription you don't use weekly. Delete every app you don't need for essential activities. End every relationship that drains more energy than it provides. Quit every organization that doesn't directly serve your objectives. Stop attending every event that exists for social or entertainment purposes rather than professional advancement. This feels antisocial because it is antisocial. This feels extreme because it is extreme. But while everyone else is spread thin across dozens of commitments and relationships, you're going to concentrate your entire capacity on the few things that actually matter. While they're networking, you're going to be mastering. While they're balanced, you're going to be focused. Phase 4. The protection protocol. Once you've eliminated the activities and relationships that don't serve your mission, you need to build systems that prevent them from creeping back into your life because they will try to creep back. People will guilt you into social commitments. Opportunities will disguise themselves as essential when they're actually distractions. Old habits will attempt to reassert themselves during moments of weakness. The protection protocol involves creating clear criteria for any new activity, relationship, or commitment before you're faced with the decision. If someone invites you to an event, you don't decide based on how you feel in the moment. You apply your predetermined criteria and make the decision based on whether it serves your mission. If an opportunity presents itself, you don't get seduced by its potential. You evaluate it against your current priorities and eliminate it if it doesn't advance your primary objective. This requires developing what psychologists call cognitive rigidity around your core principles. Most people are cognitively flexible, which means they change their criteria based on circumstances, emotions, and social pressure. But cognitive rigidity around your core principles means your standards don't change regardless of external circumstances. The result of the systematic elimination protocol is a life that looks extreme to other people but feels effortless to you. While everyone else is juggling dozens of priorities and wondering why they're not making progress, you're advancing rapidly in the few areas that actually matter to your future while they're exhausted from spreading themselves thin. You're energized by the focus and clarity that comes from elimination. This isn't about work-life balance. This is about work-life optimization through strategic subtraction. You're not trying to do everything well. You're trying to do the most important things exceptionally well by eliminating everything else. Chapter 9. The compound productivity system that turns small actions into massive results. Most people think about productivity in terms of daily tasks and immediate results. They focus on what they can accomplish today, this week, or this month. This short-term thinking is exactly why they stay trapped in the cycle of working hard but never getting ahead. The people who achieve extraordinary results think about productivity in terms of compound systems that create exponential growth over time. Compound productivity isn't about working harder or even working smarter. It's about creating systems where each action builds upon previous actions to create results that are far greater than the sum of the individual parts. It's about understanding that small consistent actions, when properly designed and systematically applied, can create outcomes that seem impossible to people who think linearly. Here's what most people don't understand about compound systems. They feel ineffective in the beginning because the results are small and slow to appear. But once the compound effect reaches a tipping point, the results become exponential and seemingly effortless. This is why most people abandon compound systems before they reach the payoff period. They don't see immediate results, so they assume the system isn't working. The compound productivity system is built on 4 core principles that work together to create exponential results over time. Each principle seems simple when viewed individually, but when combined and applied consistently, they create a level of productivity that other people cannot replicate because they're not thinking systematically. Principle 1. The skill stack amplification. Instead of developing skills in isolation, you're going to systematically acquire skills that multiply the value of your existing skills. Every new skill you learn should make your previous skills more valuable and effective. This creates a compound effect where each skill addition doesn't just add value, it multiplies the value of everything you already know. For example, if you're a writer, learning sales skills doesn't just make you better at selling, it makes you better at writing because you understand what motivates people to take action. Learning psychology doesn't just make you more insightful, it makes your writing more persuasive and your sales more effective. Learning marketing doesn't just help you promote your work. It helps you understand what kind of writing to create and how to position your ideas for maximum impact. The key is to identify the core skills in your field. Then systematically add complementary skills that amplify the effectiveness of your core competencies. This creates a compound effect where your overall capability grows exponentially rather than linearly. Principle 2. The relationship network multiplication. Most people think about networking in terms of meeting new people and adding contacts to their list. But compound networking is about creating relationships that introduce you to other valuable relationships. Creating a multiplication effect that expands your network exponentially. Instead of trying to meet everyone, you focus on building deep relationships with highly connected people who can introduce you to dozens of other valuable contacts. Instead of attending random networking events, You systematically cultivate relationships with people who have access to the opportunities, knowledge, and resources you need to achieve your objectives. The compound effect happens when your network starts working for you automatically. When people in your network start introducing you to opportunities without you asking. When your reputation precedes you into new situations because people you've never met have heard about you from people you have met. When your network becomes a force multiplier that creates opportunities faster than you can pursue them. Principle 3. The knowledge synthesis acceleration. Most people consume information randomly and retain very little of what they learn. They read books, attend seminars, and watch videos. But they don't systematically integrate new knowledge with existing knowledge to create unique insights and competitive advantages. Compound learning involves creating a personal knowledge management system that captures, organizes, and synthesizes information to create new understanding that's greater than the sum of its parts. Every book you read should connect to previous books in ways that create new insights. Every conversation should add to your understanding of patterns and principles that apply across multiple domains. The compound effect happens when your accumulated knowledge starts generating original insights that other people haven't discovered because they're not systematically connecting information across disciplines. You start seeing opportunities and solutions that are invisible to people who think in silos. Principle 4. The momentum acceleration protocol. Most people start and stop projects randomly, which means they never build the momentum necessary to achieve extraordinary results. They work intensely for a few days or weeks, then take breaks that destroy all the momentum they've built. They treat productivity as a series of individual efforts rather than a compound system that builds momentum over time. Compound momentum involves designing your work schedule and project management to maintain and accelerate progress continuously. This means working on your most important projects every single day, even if only for a short period. This means completing projects before starting new ones so that the satisfaction and confidence from completion fuels motivation for the next project. The compound effect happens when your momentum becomes self-sustaining. When the results from previous efforts create the energy and confidence to tackle bigger challenges. When your track record of completion makes it easier to start new projects because you believe in your ability to finish them. The integration protocol combines all 4 principles into a systematic approach that creates compound effects across every area of your productivity. Your skills multiply the value of each other. Your relationships create exponential networking effects. Your knowledge synthesis generates unique insights. Your momentum builds continuously rather than starting and stopping. The result is a productivity level that appears effortless to outside observers, but is actually the result of systematic compound effects that have been building for months or years. While other people are working hard for linear results, you're creating systems that produce exponential results. While they're focused on immediate gratification, you're building compound systems that create long-term dominance. This is why some people seem to achieve in months what others struggle to achieve in years. It's not because they're working harder or have more talent. It's because they understand compound systems and they're willing to invest in results that won't be visible until the compound effect reaches the tipping point. Chapter 10. The emotional optimization engine that turns your feelings into fuel instead of friction. Everyone talks about managing emotions like they're something to be controlled, suppressed, or overcome. This is completely backwards thinking that costs you massive amounts of energy and keeps you operating at a fraction of your potential. The people who achieve extraordinary results don't manage their emotions. They optimize them. They turn their feelings into rocket fuel for productivity instead of friction that slows them down. Here's what most people don't understand. Emotions are information and energy, not problems to be solved. Every feeling you experience is your nervous system's way of communicating valuable data about your environment, your progress, and your needs. When you learn to decode this information and harness this energy, your emotions become the most powerful productivity tool you have access to. The emotional optimization engine is based on the principle that every emotion, when properly understood and channeled, can be transformed into productive action. Anger becomes focus. Fear becomes preparation. Frustration becomes innovation. Sadness becomes depth. Excitement becomes momentum. Instead of fighting your emotions or trying to maintain artificial positivity, you're going to learn to optimize each emotional state for maximum productive output. Emotional state 1. Anger optimization. Most people try to suppress anger or express it destructively, which wastes the enormous energy contained in this emotion. But anger is actually one of the most powerful productive emotions when properly channeled. Anger contains the energy of injustice, the drive to change something that's wrong, and the motivation to break through obstacles that are blocking your progress. The anger optimization protocol involves recognizing anger as soon as it arises, then immediately channeling that energy into productive action that addresses the underlying issue. If you're angry about your current situation, use that energy to work harder on changing it. If you're angry about injustice, use that energy to create solutions. If you're angry about obstacles, use that energy to break through them with increased intensity. The key is to act immediately while the energy is available rather than letting anger turn into resentment or destructive behavior. Anger is rocket fuel for change, but it has a short half-life. You need to capture and direct that energy within minutes of feeling it, or it transforms into something less useful. Emotional state 2. Fear optimization. Fear is your nervous system's way of alerting you to potential threats and preparing you for action. Most people try to eliminate fear or let it paralyze them. But fear contains valuable information about risks that need to be addressed and energy that can be used for preparation and performance. The fear optimization protocol involves using fear as a strategic planning tool. When you feel fear about a potential outcome, you systematically analyze what specifically you're afraid of. Then create detailed plans to address each potential risk. Fear becomes the motivation for thorough preparation rather than the excuse for avoidance. Professional athletes use fear optimization to enhance their performance. The fear of losing motivates them to train harder, prepare more thoroughly, and perform with greater intensity. The fear of failure becomes the energy for success rather than the reason for not trying. Emotional state 3. Frustration optimization. Frustration arises when your current methods aren't producing the results you want. Most people let frustration lead to giving up or continuing ineffective approaches out of stubbornness. But frustration is actually your brain's signal that it's time to innovate, experiment, and find better methods. The frustration optimization protocol involves treating frustration as a research and development signal. When you feel frustrated with your progress, that's the cue to step back, analyze what's not working, and systematically experiment with new approaches. Frustration becomes the energy for innovation rather than the excuse for quitting. The most successful entrepreneurs use frustration optimization to drive breakthrough innovations. When they're frustrated with existing solutions, they create better ones. When they're frustrated with industry limitations, they create new industries. Frustration becomes the fuel for revolutionary thinking. Emotional state 4. Sadness optimization. Sadness often arises from loss, disappointment, or the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Most people try to avoid sadness or escape from it through distraction. But sadness contains the energy of depth, reflection, and authentic connection to what really matters. The sadness optimization protocol involves using sadness as a reconnection tool. When you feel sad, you use that emotional state to reconnect with your deepest values, your most important relationships, and your authentic motivations. Sadness becomes the energy for meaningful work rather than the reason for withdrawal. Artists and creators often produce their most powerful work during periods of sadness because they're accessing emotional depth and authenticity that's not available during surface-level emotional states. Sadness becomes the source of meaning rather than the obstacle to action. Emotional state 5. Excitement optimization. Excitement is one of the most powerful productive emotions, but most people waste it on temporary pleasures rather than channeling it into long-term progress. Excitement contains the energy of possibility, motivation, and forward momentum that can be harnessed for massive action. The excitement optimization protocol involves capturing excitement immediately and directing it toward your most important objectives. When you feel excited about an opportunity, an idea, or a possibility, you take immediate action to capitalize on that energy rather than letting it dissipate through planning, discussion, or delay. The key is to use excitement as action fuel rather than planning fuel. Excitement motivates action, not analysis. When you feel excited, you start immediately, even if your initial efforts are imperfect. You use the energy to build momentum rather than create perfect plans. The integration protocol combines all 5 emotional optimization strategies into a comprehensive system that turns every feeling into productive fuel. Instead of managing emotions, you're optimizing them. Instead of controlling feelings, you're channeling them. Instead of suppressing emotional energy, you're harnessing it for maximum productivity. The result is an emotional system that works for you rather than against you. Your emotions become allies in your productivity rather than obstacles to overcome. Your feelings become information and energy rather than distractions and problems. You stop fighting yourself and start working with your complete emotional system to achieve results that seem impossible to people who are constantly battling their own feelings. Chapter 11. The implementation warfare system that guarantees you execute even when you don't feel like it. The difference between people who achieve extraordinary results and people who stay stuck in mediocrity isn't knowledge, talent, or opportunity. It's the ability to execute consistently regardless of emotional state, external circumstances, or internal resistance. Everyone knows what they should do. Very few people actually do what they know consistently enough to create the results they want. This is the implementation gap, and it's where most people's dreams go to die. They have great ideas, solid plans, and clear objectives. But they can't bridge the gap between knowing and doing. They execute when they feel motivated, inspired, or confident. But they stop when they feel tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed. This inconsistent execution pattern guarantees mediocre results because breakthrough achievements require sustained action over extended periods. The implementation warfare system is designed to make execution inevitable regardless of your internal state or external circumstances. This isn't about motivation or willpower, both of which are unreliable and temporary. This is about creating systems that force you to execute even when every part of you wants to quit, delay, or make excuses. Implementation Protocol 1. The Non-Negotiable Commitment Architecture. Most people make commitments to themselves that they break the moment things get difficult or inconvenient. They treat their goals like suggestions rather than obligations, which means they only follow through when it's easy or pleasant. But breakthrough results require treating your commitments like physical laws that cannot be violated under any circumstances. The commitment architecture involves creating multiple layers of accountability that make breaking your commitment more painful than keeping it. This means financial stakes that would hurt to lose. This means public commitments that would embarrass you to break. This means accountability partners who will call you out when you're making excuses. This means consequences that activate immediately when you fail to execute. But the most powerful layer is identity consequences. You create a clear definition of who you are and what you do. Then make it psychologically impossible to act in ways that contradict that identity. If you're a writer, writers write every day, regardless of how they feel. If you're an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs take business action every day, regardless of circumstances. If you're an athlete, athletes train every day regardless of motivation. The psychological power of this approach is that it removes the decision point where resistance lives. You're not deciding whether to work out this morning. You're following through on who you are. You're not choosing whether to work on your business today. You're acting in alignment with your identity. The action becomes automatic because it's connected to your core sense of self. Implementation Protocol 2. The resistance prediction and preemption system. Most people are surprised by their own resistance to taking action. They make plans when they feel motivated, then wonder why they can't execute when motivation fades. But resistance is completely predictable. If you understand the psychological patterns that create it. The resistance prediction system involves identifying every possible form of resistance that could prevent you from executing, then creating specific preemptive strategies to neutralize each form before it arises. This means knowing exactly when you're most likely to make excuses and preparing responses in advance. This means understanding which emotions trigger avoidance behavior and developing protocols to work through them. This means anticipating external obstacles and creating contingency plans. For example, if you know you tend to skip workouts when you feel tired, you create an implementation rule that says fatigue is not a valid reason to skip training unless you have a fever. If you know you tend to procrastinate on difficult projects when you feel overwhelmed, you create a protocol that breaks overwhelming tasks into specific 15-minute actions that feel manageable. The key is to create these protocols when you're feeling strong and motivated. So, they're available when you're feeling weak and resistant. You're using your peak psychological state to protect yourself from your lowest psychological state. Implementation Protocol 3, the Micro-Commitment Escalation Strategy. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to implement new behaviors is starting with commitments that are too large and ambitious. They commit to working out for 2 hours a day when they're currently sedentary. They commit to writing for 4 hours a day when they're currently writing nothing. These massive commitments create such high resistance that they guarantee failure. The micro-commitment escalation strategy starts with commitments so small that resistance is impossible, then gradually increases the intensity as the behavior becomes automatic. You start by committing to put on your workout clothes every day, regardless of whether you actually exercise. You commit to opening your laptop and creating a new document every day, regardless of whether you actually write. You commit to reading 1 page of an important book every day, regardless of whether you continue reading. The psychological principle behind this strategy is that starting is the hardest part of any behavior. Once you've started, continuation becomes much easier because you've already overcome the initial resistance by making the start requirement so small that you can't rationalize avoiding it. You eliminate the primary obstacle to execution. But here's where it becomes powerful. Once you've started the micro-commitment, you often continue beyond the minimum requirement because you're already in motion. You put on your workout clothes and decide to do a few exercises. You open your laptop and write a few sentences. You read 1 page and continue for several more. Implementation Protocol 4, the Environmental Domination System. Your environment is programming your behavior every second of every day. And most people are completely unaware of this programming. Every object in your space, every stimulus in your environment, every cue in your surroundings is either making execution easier or harder. The people who execute consistently have engineered their environment to make the right actions automatic and the wrong actions difficult or impossible. This means removing every friction point between you and important actions. Your workout clothes are laid out the night before. Your healthy food is prepared and easily accessible. Your work materials are organized and immediately available. Your creative tools are within arm's reach. The environment supports execution rather than requiring willpower to overcome obstacles. But it also means adding friction to behaviors that interfere with execution. Your phone is stored in another room during work hours. Your television remote is hidden in a drawer. Your social media apps require multiple steps to access. Your junk food is stored in inconvenient locations. The environment makes destructive behaviors difficult rather than relying on self-control to resist them. Implementation Protocol 5, the Progress Measurement and Adjustment Loop. Most people either don't measure their progress at all or they measure it inconsistently, which means they don't know whether their implementation systems are working without clear measurement. You can't identify problems before they become failures. And you can't make adjustments that improve your execution rate. The measurement and adjustment loop involves tracking specific metrics that indicate whether you're executing consistently, then making systematic adjustments when the data shows you're falling short. This means daily tracking of whether you completed your most important actions. This means weekly analysis of what prevented execution when it didn't happen. This means monthly adjustments to your systems based on real performance data. The key is to measure behavior, not just results. Results can be delayed or influenced by factors outside your control, but behavior is something you can control and adjust immediately. If you're measuring whether you executed your daily actions, you can make corrections in real time rather than waiting for results to show you that your approach isn't working. The integration protocol combines all 5 implementation systems into a comprehensive approach that makes execution inevitable. Your commitments are structured to make breaking them more painful than keeping them. Your resistance is predicted and preempted before it can derail you. Your actions start small and escalate gradually. Your environment supports execution automatically. Your progress is measured and adjusted continuously. The result is an implementation system that operates independently of your motivation, emotions, or circumstances, while other people execute when they feel like it. You execute because your systems make execution automatic. While they struggle with consistency, you operate with machine-like reliability. While they make excuses, you make progress. Chapter 12. The extreme productivity methods that separate the obsessed from the average. Everything you've learned so far will put you ahead of 90% of people. But if you want to operate in the top 1%, if you want to achieve results that seem impossible to average people, you need to understand the extreme methods that most people are psychologically unwilling to implement. These aren't productivity tips. These are lifestyle choices that require you to think differently about sacrifice, balance, and what it means to be successful. The people who achieve extraordinary results don't just work differently. They live differently. They make choices that other people call extreme, obsessive, or unbalanced. And they're completely comfortable with those labels because they understand that extraordinary results require extraordinary methods. If you want average results, use average methods. If you want exceptional results, you need to be willing to do what exceptional people do. Extreme Method 1. The Seasonal Domination Strategy. Most people try to maintain consistent productivity across all areas of their life throughout the entire year. They want to be great at work, relationships, health, hobbies, and personal development simultaneously and constantly. This is a recipe for mediocrity because human attention and energy are finite resources that cannot be optimized for everything at once. The seasonal domination strategy involves identifying 3-month periods where you dominate one specific area of your life at the expense of everything else. For 1 quarter, you might focus obsessively on building your business while maintaining minimum viable effort in health and relationships. The next quarter, you might focus intensely on physical transformation while maintaining your business momentum, but not trying to grow it. This isn't about neglecting important areas of your life. It's about recognizing that mastery requires focused intensity that cannot be sustained across multiple domains simultaneously. During your business domination season, you're not ignoring your health. You're maintaining basic fitness while directing your growth energy toward business. During your health domination season, you're not abandoning your business. You're maintaining operations while directing your improvement energy toward physical transformation. The psychological power of this approach is that it eliminates the internal conflict that comes from trying to optimize everything simultaneously. Instead of feeling guilty that you're not giving 100% to every area of your life, you're intentionally directing 100% of your growth energy toward one area while maintaining the others. This focused intensity creates breakthrough results that would be impossible if you were spreading your effort across multiple priorities. Extreme Method 2. The Information Elimination Protocol. The average person consumes over 34 gigabytes of information per day across multiple devices and platforms. They read news, watch videos, listen to podcasts, scroll social media, and browse websites constantly throughout the day. They've convinced themselves that staying informed is important, but they're actually destroying their capacity for deep thinking and original insight. The information elimination protocol involves cutting 95% of your information consumption and becoming incredibly selective about what you allow into your mind. This means no news unless it directly impacts your industry or objectives. No social media unless it's essential for your business. No podcasts unless they contain specific knowledge you need for current projects. No books unless they're directly relevant to skills you're developing or problems you're solving. This feels extreme because you're surrounded by people who are constantly consuming information and you'll feel like you're missing out. But here's what you gain: mental clarity, deep thinking capacity, original insights, and the ability to focus on implementation rather than consumption. While everyone else is filling their minds with other people's thoughts, you're creating space for your own thinking. The most successful people I know consume very little information, but implement everything they consume. They read fewer books but apply every principle. They attend fewer conferences but implement every insight. They follow fewer experts but master every technique they learn. Quality of implementation beats quantity of consumption every time. Extreme Method 3. The Social Circle Optimization Surgery. Your social circle is either accelerating your progress or slowing it down. Every person you spend time with is either inspiring you to level up or enabling you to stay comfortable with mediocrity. Most people are afraid to optimize their social relationships because they don't want to hurt feelings or appear judgmental. But this fear of social optimization is what keeps them surrounded by people who don't support their growth. The social circle optimization surgery involves systematically removing people from your life who drain energy, discourage ambition, or normalize mediocrity while systematically adding people who inspire excellence, challenge complacency, and model the success you want to achieve. This isn't about being mean or superior. This is about recognizing that you become the average of the people you spend the most time with. This means ending friendships with people who consistently complain, make excuses, or discourage your ambitions. This means limiting time with family members who don't support your goals or try to keep you comfortable with underachievement. This means joining communities, organizations, and groups where high performance is normal rather than exceptional. The psychological impact of this optimization is profound. When you're surrounded by people who expect excellence, excellence becomes your new normal. When you're around people who are constantly growing and achieving, growth and achievement become automatic. When your social environment supports your highest aspirations, you don't need motivation to pursue them because pursuing them becomes the natural thing to do. Extreme Method 4. The Monk Mode Productivity Protocol. This is the most extreme method and the one that creates the most dramatic results. Monk mode involves temporarily removing yourself from social activities, entertainment, and non-essential commitments to focus completely on a specific objective for an extended period. This isn't a weekend retreat or a week-long focus session. This is 30 to 90 days of complete dedication to a single outcome. During monk mode, you eliminate everything that doesn't directly contribute to your objective. No social events, no entertainment, no hobbies, no casual relationships. Your entire life becomes organized around one goal and everything else gets postponed until you achieve it. This might mean working 12 hours a day on your business. This might mean training 6 hours a day for an athletic goal. This might mean studying 10 hours a day for a certification or skill. This feels insane to average people because it violates everything they believe about balance and moderation. But the people who have used monk mode to achieve breakthrough results understand that some goals require complete obsession for a limited period rather than moderate effort over an extended period. The key to monk mode is making it temporary and specific. You're not abandoning balance forever. You're temporarily sacrificing balance to achieve a specific outcome that would be impossible with a balanced approach. Once you achieve the objective, you can return to a more sustainable lifestyle, but you'll return at a higher level because of the intensive focus period. Extreme Method 5. The Pain Tolerance Escalation System. Average people avoid discomfort, difficulty, and pain whenever possible. They choose easy tasks over hard tasks, comfortable situations over challenging situations, and familiar patterns over uncertain outcomes. This comfort-seeking behavior keeps them trapped in their current situation because growth requires moving through discomfort rather than around it. The pain tolerance escalation system involves systematically increasing your capacity to work through discomfort, difficulty, and resistance. This means choosing harder tasks when easier options are available. This means continuing to work when you feel tired, frustrated, or overwhelmed. This means pursuing opportunities that feel scary rather than safe. But this isn't about suffering for its own sake. This is about understanding that your capacity to handle discomfort directly determines your capacity to achieve results. The bigger your goals, the more discomfort you'll need to work through to achieve them. By systematically increasing your pain tolerance, you increase your capacity to pursue bigger objectives. The psychological transformation that happens through pain tolerance escalation is that difficulty becomes normal rather than exceptional. Challenges become opportunities rather than obstacles. Resistance becomes a signal to lean in rather than back away. You develop what psychologists call stress inoculation, which makes you more resilient and capable under pressure. These extreme methods aren't for everyone, and they're not meant to be. They're for people who are willing to be called obsessive, unbalanced, and extreme by people who will never achieve what they're going to achieve. If you want extraordinary results, you need to be willing to use extraordinary methods even when other people don't understand or approve of your choices. Chapter 13. The Mastery Mindset That Turns Temporary Success into Permanent Dominance. Most people who achieve success can't sustain it. They reach a certain level of achievement and then plateau, decline, or completely lose everything they've built. The business world is full of one-hit wonders. Athletes who dominated briefly, then disappeared. And entrepreneurs who built something great, then watched it collapse. The difference between temporary success and permanent dominance isn't luck, circumstances, or even talent. It's mindset. The people who sustain success over decades, who continue growing when their peers plateau, who remain relevant while others become obsolete, all share a specific psychological approach that I call the mastery mindset. This isn't about achieving mastery once. This is about making mastery a continuous process that never ends. Regardless of how successful you become. The biggest trap that destroys successful people is the achievement mindset. They work intensely to reach a goal, achieve it, then shift into maintenance mode. They stop learning, stop growing, stop pushing themselves, and start defending what they've already built. This shift from growth to protection is the beginning of the end. Because in a rapidly changing world, not growing means you're falling behind. Mastery Principle 1, the Beginner's Mind Retention System. The moment you start thinking of yourself as an expert, you stop learning at the rate required to stay ahead. Expertise creates cognitive blind spots that prevent you from seeing new possibilities, better methods, and emerging opportunities. The mastery mindset involves maintaining beginner's mind regardless of how much you know or how successful you become. This means approaching every situation with curiosity rather than certainty. This means asking questions even when you think you know the answers. This means being willing to be wrong, to look foolish, to admit ignorance in areas where you're supposed to be expert. This means treating every interaction as an opportunity to learn something new rather than an opportunity to demonstrate what you already know. The psychological challenge of beginner's mind is that it requires giving up the ego satisfaction that comes from being recognized as an expert. Most people work hard to become knowledgeable specifically so they can enjoy the status and recognition that comes with expertise. But mastery requires sacrificing the ego rewards of expertise in exchange for the growth benefits of continuous learning. The people who sustain success over decades are constantly studying their field as if they're beginners even when they're recognized as world-class experts. They read basic books, attend introductory seminars, and ask fundamental questions because they understand that mastery is a process, not a destination. Mastery Principle 2, the Failure Integration Protocol. Average people try to avoid failure and are devastated when it happens. Successful people accept failure as inevitable but try to minimize it. Mastery-minded people actively seek failure because they understand that failure contains information and growth opportunities that success doesn't provide. The failure integration protocol involves systematically pursuing challenges that have a high probability of failure because that's where the most learning happens. This means taking on projects that are beyond your current skill level. This means experimenting with methods that might not work. This means risking short-term failure in exchange for long-term growth. But the key is learning to fail intelligently. This means failing fast and cheap rather than slow and expensive. This means extracting maximum learning from every failure. This means using failure as data to improve your methods rather than evidence that you should quit. This means maintaining psychological resilience so that failure motivates rather than devastates. The mastery mindset treats failure as expensive education rather than devastating setback. Every failure teaches you something about what doesn't work, which gets you closer to discovering what does work. Every failure builds psychological resilience that allows you to take bigger risks in the future. Every failure provides stories and insights that help you help others avoid similar mistakes. Mastery Principle 3, the Compound Learning Acceleration System. Most people learn linearly. They acquire new skills one at a time in isolation from their existing knowledge. But mastery-minded people learn exponentially by creating connections between different domains of knowledge that multiply the value of everything they learn. The compound learning system involves systematically connecting new knowledge to existing knowledge to create insights that are greater than the sum of the parts. This means reading books from multiple disciplines and identifying patterns that apply across all of them. This means having conversations with experts from different fields and finding universal principles. This means applying techniques from one domain to solve problems in completely different domains. The psychological shift required for compound learning is moving from specialist thinking to synthesist thinking. Instead of trying to become the best in one narrow area, you're trying to become the best at connecting insights across multiple areas. Instead of going deeper in one direction, you're going broader to create unique combinations of knowledge. This is why some people can enter a new field and quickly reach expert level while others spend decades trying to master one area. The mastery-minded people are leveraging knowledge and skills from other domains to accelerate their learning in the new area. They're not starting from zero. They're starting from the accumulated wisdom of everything they've learned before. Mastery Principle 4, the Teaching Integration Imperative. Most people think of teaching as something you do after you've mastered a subject. But the mastery mindset involves teaching throughout the learning process because teaching accelerates learning in ways that studying alone cannot achieve. When you teach something, you're forced to organize your knowledge in ways that make it understandable to others. This process of organization reveals gaps in your understanding that weren't visible when you were just consuming information. Teaching forces you to think about fundamental principles, practical applications, and common mistakes in ways that deepen your own mastery. But teaching also creates feedback loops that accelerate your learning. Students ask questions you hadn't considered. They make mistakes that reveal flaws in your explanations. They apply your teachings in ways you hadn't imagined. This feedback improves your understanding and forces you to refine your knowledge continuously. The mastery mindset involves looking for opportunities to teach everything you're learning. Even if you're still a beginner, this might mean writing about your learning process, creating content that shares your insights, mentoring people who are behind you in the journey, or simply explaining concepts to friends and colleagues. Mastery Principle 5, the Evolution Anticipation Strategy. The biggest threat to sustained success is obsolescence. The skills, methods, and knowledge that made you successful today might be irrelevant in 5 years. The mastery mindset involves constantly anticipating how your field is changing and positioning yourself ahead of those changes rather than reacting to them after they happen. This means studying trends, technologies, and innovations that might disrupt your industry. This means developing skills that will be valuable in the future, even if they're not essential today. This means building relationships with people who are creating the future rather than just people who are successful in the present. The psychological challenge of evolution anticipation is that it requires investing time and energy in areas that might not pay off immediately. You're learning skills you don't need yet, building relationships with people who aren't influential yet, and preparing for changes that might not happen for years. This long-term thinking is what separates permanent dominance from temporary success. The integration protocol combines all 5 mastery principles into a comprehensive mindset that makes continuous growth inevitable. You maintain beginner's mind regardless of expertise. You integrate failure as learning rather than avoiding it. You create compound learning effects across multiple domains. You teach to accelerate your own learning. You anticipate evolution rather than reacting to it. The result is a mindset that makes sustained success inevitable rather than accidental. While others plateau after initial success, you continue growing. While they become obsolete, you evolve. While they defend past achievements, you create future opportunities. You don't just achieve mastery once. You make mastery a continuous process that never ends. Chapter 14. The systematic automation revolution that makes your success machine run without you. The ultimate productivity achievement isn't working harder or even working smarter. It's creating systems that produce results without requiring your constant attention and effort. The people who build lasting wealth, influence and impact understand that personal productivity has limits. But systematic productivity is unlimited. They don't just optimize their own performance. They create machines that amplify their efforts exponentially. This isn't about technology automation. Although technology plays a role, this is about systematic automation, creating processes, teams and systems that handle the routine aspects of your work so you can focus on the strategic and creative aspects that only you can do. It's about building what I call a success machine that operates according to your standards and vision, even when you're not directly involved. The psychological shift required for systematic automation is moving from being a player in your own game to being the architect of the game itself. Instead of trying to do everything better, you're trying to create systems that do most things without you. Instead of being irreplaceable, you're making yourself strategically replaceable in operational tasks so you can focus on activities that create exponential rather than linear results. Automation Layer 1. The Decision-Making Framework Distribution System. Most entrepreneurs and high performers become bottlenecks in their own success because they try to make every decision personally. They can't scale beyond their own decision-making capacity, which means their growth is limited by their availability and attention. The solution is creating decision-making frameworks that allow other people to make decisions that align with your standards and objectives. This involves documenting your decision-making process for different categories of situations, then training other people to apply those frameworks independently. Instead of making every hiring decision yourself, you create criteria and processes that allow others to make hiring decisions that meet your standards. Instead of approving every expense personally, you create spending guidelines that allow others to make financial decisions within your parameters. The key is starting with small, low-risk decisions and gradually expanding the scope as people demonstrate competence with your frameworks. You're not giving up control. You're multiplying your decision-making capacity by teaching others to think like you in specific situations. Automation Layer 2. The Standard Operating Procedure Revolution. Most people keep their best practices in their heads, which means those practices die when they're not personally involved. The systematic automation approach involves documenting every effective process so it can be replicated by others without requiring your direct supervision. This means creating step-by-step procedures for every important task in your business or career. How to handle customer service issues. How to create content that meets your quality standards. How to manage projects from start to finish. How to conduct meetings that produce decisions and action items. How to onboard new team members effectively. The documentation process itself improves your own performance because it forces you to think systematically about what actually works versus what you think works. Many people discover that their intuitive processes contain steps they weren't consciously aware of, or that their actual process differs significantly from what they thought they were doing. But the real power comes from having other people execute these procedures and provide feedback on what works, what doesn't work, and what could be improved. This creates a continuous improvement loop that makes your systems better over time rather than just maintaining current performance levels. Automation Layer 3, the strategic delegation architecture. Most people avoid delegation because they believe no one else can do the work as well as they can. This might be true initially, but it misses the fundamental point of delegation. Freeing up your time and energy for activities that create disproportionate value. Even if someone else does a task at 80% of your quality level, that delegation is worthwhile if it allows you to focus on activities that only you can do. The strategic delegation architecture involves systematically identifying tasks that can be done by others, then investing the time necessary to train people to do those tasks to an acceptable standard. This requires upfront investment of time and energy, but it creates long-term multiplication of your capacity. The key is delegating based on impact rather than difficulty. Some easy tasks should never be delegated because they're strategically important. Some difficult tasks should be delegated immediately because they don't require your unique capabilities. The decision isn't whether you can do something better than someone else. The decision is whether doing that thing is the best use of your irreplaceable time and energy. Automation Layer 4. The quality control and feedback system architecture. The biggest fear people have about automation and delegation is loss of quality control. They worry that if they're not personally involved in every aspect of their work, standards will slip and results will suffer. But well-designed systems actually improve quality control by creating consistency that's impossible to maintain through personal involvement alone. The quality control architecture involves creating measurement systems that track the performance of your automated processes and delegation systems. This means establishing key metrics for every important process, then monitoring those metrics regularly to ensure standards are being maintained or improved. But it also means creating feedback loops that allow for continuous improvement of your systems. When quality issues arise, you don't just fix the immediate problem. You analyze what caused the problem and improve your systems to prevent similar problems in the future. Every quality issue becomes an opportunity to make your automation more robust. Automation Layer 5, the strategic focus amplification protocol. The ultimate purpose of systematic automation isn't to work less, although that's a possible benefit. The purpose is to focus more of your time and energy on activities that create exponential rather than linear results. Every task you automate or delegate should free up capacity for higher leverage activities. This means systematically identifying the 20% of your activities that create 80% of your results. Then automating or delegating everything else so you can spend more time on that critical 20%. But it also means continuously raising your standards for what qualifies as high-leverage activity. As your systems handle more routine tasks, you can focus on increasingly strategic and creative work. The strategic focus amplification protocol involves regular analysis of how you're spending your time, identification of activities that could be systematized, and continuous investment in building systems that handle those activities. You're constantly asking, what am I doing that someone else could do? What processes could be documented and replicated? What decisions could be made by others using clear frameworks? The integration protocol combines all 5 automation layers into a comprehensive system that multiplies your capacity exponentially. Your decision-making frameworks allow others to make decisions that align with your standards. Your standard operating procedures ensure consistent quality without your direct involvement. Your strategic delegation frees up your time for high-impact activities. Your quality control systems maintain standards while allowing for continuous improvement. Your strategic focus ensures that automation serves the purpose of amplification rather than just efficiency. The result is a success machine that produces results at a scale that would be impossible through personal effort alone. While others are trapped by their own capacity limitations, you've created systems that scale beyond your personal involvement. While they're working in their business, you're working on your business. While they're maximizing their personal productivity, you're building productivity machines that operate without you. Chapter 15. The ultimate mindset transformation that makes extreme productivity your new normal. Everything I've shared with you up to this point is tactics, strategies, and systems. But none of it will create lasting change unless you undergo the fundamental mindset transformation that makes extreme productivity feel normal rather than extreme. The people who sustain high performance over years and decades don't think about productivity as something they do. They think about it as something they are. This final chapter is about the psychological transformation that turns productivity from an external practice into an internal identity. It's about changing not just how you work, but how you think about work, success, and what it means to live an exceptional life. It's about making the extreme methods feel not just normal, but inevitable. The biggest obstacle to sustained high performance isn't a lack of knowledge or tools. It's the psychological resistance that arises when you try to operate at a level that's dramatically different from your previous normal. Your brain is designed to maintain homeostasis, which means it will resist changes that feel too dramatic or unfamiliar even when those changes are beneficial. This is why most people can't sustain extreme productivity methods for more than a few weeks or months. The methods feel foreign to their identity, so their psychology eventually pulls them back to familiar patterns of behavior. But when extreme productivity becomes part of your identity, it feels wrong not to operate at that level. Mindset transformation won from effort-based to systems-based identity. Most people think of productivity as something that requires constant effort, willpower, and motivation. They identify as someone who works hard, pushes through obstacles, and forces themselves to take action. This effort-based identity creates internal resistance because it frames productivity as something you have to fight for rather than something that flows naturally from who you are. The systems-based identity transformation involves seeing yourself as someone who creates and operates systems rather than someone who works hard. Instead of identifying as someone who pushes through resistance, you identify as someone who eliminates resistance through design. Instead of seeing yourself as disciplined, you see yourself as systematic. This psychological shift changes everything about how you approach challenges. When you encounter resistance, you don't try to push through it with more effort. You create systems that make the resistance irrelevant. When you face difficult tasks, you don't rely on motivation to get through them. You design processes that make completion automatic. The systems-based identity makes extreme productivity feel effortless because you're not constantly fighting against your own psychology. You're working with your psychology by creating environments and processes that make the right actions feel natural and automatic. Mindset transformation 2. From balance, seeking to excellence obsessed identity. The balance-seeking mindset is one of the biggest barriers to extreme productivity because it frames intensity and focus as unhealthy rather than necessary. People who identify as balanced will unconsciously resist methods that feel extreme even when those methods would create the results they want. The excellence-obsessed identity transformation involves embracing intensity and focus as natural expressions of your commitment to mastery rather than signs of imbalance or dysfunction. You stop seeing obsession as a character flaw and start seeing it as a character strength. You stop trying to be well-rounded and start trying to be exceptional. This doesn't mean neglecting important areas of your life. It means being intentional about seasons of focus and understanding that mastery requires periods of intense concentration that might look unbalanced to people who don't understand what it takes to excel. The excellence-obsessed identity makes extreme methods feel appropriate rather than excessive because you understand that extraordinary results require extraordinary commitment. You're not trying to maintain work-life balance. You're trying to create work-life excellence by being fully present and committed to whatever you're focusing on in each season of your life. Mindset Transformation 3. From comfort-seeking to growth-obsessed identity. The comfort-seeking mindset treats discomfort, difficulty, and challenge as problems to be avoided or minimized. People with this identity will unconsciously choose easier paths, avoid difficult conversations, and resist situations that feel uncertain or challenging. The growth-obsessed identity transformation involves reframing discomfort as a signal that you're moving in the right direction rather than a warning that something is wrong. You start seeing challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles. You begin pursuing difficult situations because you know that's where growth happens. This psychological shift changes your relationship with resistance completely. Instead of seeing resistance as evidence that you should stop or choose an easier path, you see resistance as confirmation that you're working on something important. Instead of avoiding discomfort, you start seeking it because you understand that comfort is the enemy of growth. The growth-obsessed identity makes extreme productivity methods feel exciting rather than overwhelming because you understand that the difficulty is part of the value. You're not trying to make things easier. You're trying to make yourself stronger by consistently choosing harder challenges. Mindset Transformation from outcome dependent to process. Obsessed identity. The outcome-dependent mindset ties satisfaction and motivation to external results, which creates psychological instability because results are partially outside your control. When results are good, motivation is high. When results are disappointing, motivation crashes. The process-obsessed identity transformation involves finding satisfaction and motivation in the quality of your process rather than the speed of your results. You become obsessed with executing your systems consistently rather than achieving specific outcomes on specific timelines. This doesn't mean you don't care about results. It means you understand that sustainable results come from sustainable processes and that focusing on process quality creates better outcomes than focusing on outcome timing. You trust that consistent execution of effective processes will create the results you want. Even if the timing is different than you originally planned, the process-obsessed identity makes extreme productivity sustainable because your satisfaction comes from the work itself rather than external validation or immediate results. You can maintain intensity and focus for extended periods because you're not dependent on external feedback to maintain motivation. Mindset Transformation 5. From individual to systematic legacy identity. The individual mindset focuses on personal achievement and personal recognition. The systematic legacy mindset focuses on creating systems and knowledge that can benefit others and continue producing value beyond your personal involvement. This transformation involves seeing your productivity methods not just as tools for personal success, but as systems that can be shared, taught, and replicated by others. You become obsessed with documenting your processes, teaching your methods, and creating value that extends beyond your personal achievements. The systematic legacy identity makes extreme productivity feel meaningful rather than selfish because you understand that your commitment to excellence creates value for others, not just yourself. You're not just trying to achieve personal success. You're trying to create systems and insights that can help others achieve success as well. The integration protocol combines all 5 mindset transformations into a comprehensive psychological shift that makes extreme productivity feel natural rather than forced. You think in systems rather than effort. You pursue excellence rather than balance. You seek growth rather than comfort. You focus on process rather than outcomes. You create legacy rather than just personal achievement. The result is a mindset that makes everything you've learned in this training feel not just possible but inevitable. The extreme methods don't feel extreme anymore because they align with who you've become. The intensive focus doesn't feel difficult because it expresses your natural obsession with excellence. The systematic approach doesn't feel complicated because you think systematically about everything. You don't have to force yourself to be productive because productivity has become part of your identity. You don't have to fight resistance because you've created systems that eliminate resistance. You don't have to maintain motivation because you're motivated by the process itself rather than external results. This is how productivity becomes illegal. Not because you're breaking any laws, but because your level of performance becomes so far beyond what most people consider possible that it seems like you must be cheating the system. You're not cheating. You're just operating from a completely different psychological framework that makes extreme performance feel normal. The choice is yours. You can go back to average methods and average results. Or you can commit to the mindset transformation that makes extreme productivity your new normal. You can stay comfortable with mediocrity. Or you can become obsessed with excellence. You can maintain balance and limit your potential. Or you can embrace intensity and discover what you're truly capable of achieving. The people who change the world don't do it by being balanced. They do it by being obsessed. The question isn't whether you're capable of this level of productivity. The question is whether you're willing to become the kind of person who operates at this level naturally. Your productivity doesn't have to feel illegal. It just has to feel inevitable.